So why does one person make a good decision and someone else make a bad? Is it just based on experience? I mean, think about it. Right now, moment to moment, there's something controlling every decision you make. And then there is a force that controls what you even consider to do long-term in your life. So what controls your decisions in the moment is something we call state. The mental, emotional, physical state you're in right now will filter how you look at life. So for example, if you're in a state of anger and frustration and one of your children walks in, you might snap at them and go, "What do you want?" Have you ever done that? Well, listen, you weren't upset with your children. Your decision unconsciously about what to focus on, what their walking the room means, it's an irritation, it's an interruption versus it's love coming your way, or they need me. And what you decide to do all in a millisecond came out of the state of frustration you're in. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? If you're feeling playful and your kids come in, you immediately decide, consciously or unconsciously, to focus, give a different meaning, do something very different in a playful state when your kids come in. So honing, strengthening, training, conditioning your mind and body to be in your best states most of the time. No one's in those states all the time, and anger, frustration, and so forth are sometimes useful, but making sure the majority of the emotions lead you to the most empowered states, that's a big part of what we're going to do the next few days. That's what we're going to lock in. That's what I do every day of my life. In fact, tomorrow's session is how to literally train that into your body with a small daily ritual you can do every day, 3 or 4 times a week. But if you do it, it'll change your life. I've done it with athletes, politicians, business people, myself, kids, people in prison. It works. It's not philosophy. It's core mechanics and strategy. Hope I've hooked you for tomorrow. Second thing that influences our life, though, besides our state that controls our decisions, finally, is what I call our blueprint. Our blueprint is like our view of life, our worldview. The way we look at life determines what we're even willing to consider. And our worldview, I call it blueprint because it's very specific. We just don't realize it. It's in our unconscious very often. But we have specific beliefs about how we're supposed to be, or how life's supposed to be, or how other people are supposed to treat us. And when life doesn't match our blueprint, we tend to get upset. And when life does, we feel like, wow, the sun is in the sky and everything's wonderful. The challenge is sometimes our blueprint hasn't been updated for a long time. Or sometimes our blueprint doesn't make any sense because our unhappiness or our frustration or our inability to respond, it's because we've got a set of beliefs that limit us, a set of expectations that are not real, or a set of experiences that don't make us value our life in the right way. I mean, one example of a worldview or a blueprint might be, as a metaphor, if you think life is a test, just one little belief in your whole blueprint, that controls the state you go in, the decisions you make, the way you look at your life. If life's a test, you tell me, what's life like? Well, you might say it's tough. You got to prepare. You could pass or fail at life. If you're someone who's successful at taking tests, you might say then life's a breeze. My point is, even one metaphor shapes you. What if life isn't a test? What if instead life is a battle? Then you're always looking for a fight or expecting one to come your way. There are many people that believe that, aren't there? Many people that are always, battling with life. And because that's what we focus on, remember, whatever you look for, seek and you shall what? Find, right? So whatever we focus on, it tends to show up in our life. Where focus goes, energy flows once again. So again, think about this. Or what if life, your belief was life was sacred? How would you treat life? With love, with respect, with honor? You might also think it's fragile, though. What if you think life is a party? Life might be about connection, communication. It's a different world, isn't it? Think about what life's like when life is a party. It's a different thing. Some people, you get wasted in life then. Other people are like, no, man, it's like life it's the ultimate joy. What if life was a dance? What would life be like? You do it with others. You're connected. There's a flow. It's not about just yourself. Or you can be by yourself and still have a good time. All depends on your view of dance, doesn't it? Which one of these is life, by the way? I don't know. It's probably all these things. But once we start believing life's a certain way, we make decisions based on that. Do you follow me? Moment to moment, you might think life is beautiful, but if you get in a lousy state, you make lousy decisions. But moment to moment, if you're in a great state and you got a lousy view of life, you'll make a good decision in that moment. But long term, you could come back to looking at the downside. So shifting some of your blueprint is a huge part of what I've been trying to master throughout my life. And I think, honestly, one of the gifts I can give you. because I've been with so many people, because I've helped people make so many changes. I mean, my ultimate experience of this is my weekend, Unleash the Power Within or Date with Destiny, where we do this for 5 or 6 days, and you see people completely change their entire experience of life because everything they see and notice and appreciate is changed by the shift in their beliefs and their values and the rules, by the shift in their blueprint. So what I want you to get out of this, though, is both of these are shaping your decisions. We're going to attack both of these areas. State will do tomorrow. Let me just give you a little more insight just for a moment about blueprint. Because if you ever find yourself and you want to understand your blueprint, I can show you a quick way to do this. Just, kind of introduce you to blueprint. If I were to ask you, is there an area of your life that you're really happy with? And you might say, well, I'm not happy with my life right now. You may not be happy overall, but if you're honest and fair with yourself, there's some area you're pretty pleased with, isn't there? If one area is not doing well, some other area is, even if many areas aren't going well. We tend to think like, okay, well, my career's not where I want to be, so my life is over. We tend to overgeneralize. Or my relationship's not where I want to be, so I have no life. You got a body. You got some friends. Maybe you have your kids. Maybe your career is good. What is it? Is it your sense of joy or emotion? Is it your body? Is it your finances? Is it a career? Is it the spiritual side of life? Is it your friendships? If I were to ask you now, what's an area of life you're really happy with, what area would that be? And as I ask you that, I'd really like to ask you, if you're not driving, if you're driving, you might want to pull over and do this for 2 minutes. I mean, I meet people all the time from my original personal power program that do that. Or at least take the time to really think about this. But if you're not driving or running, jogging or something, grab a piece of paper and a pen. And this will only take a minute, but writing it down will crystallize it for you. The point of the matter is, I want you to write down the answer to a question. The question that I get people to understand a little about their blueprint is to say, what's an area of life that really makes you happy or that you're really happy about right now? Now, some people's blueprint says, I'm never happy. Happiness is absurd. It's a joke. We don't need happiness. Okay, then what's an area you're somewhat pleased with? And as you get to that area, as you think of it now, I want you to answer and write down a second question, if you can write it down. Write down a couple sentences or a paragraph. And the question is this: why? Why are you happy in this area of your life? Why? And I tell people all the time, I'm the why guy. I've had so many people over the years say, come up to me, hey, you're that motivational guy, aren't you? I don't need any motivation. And I'll say, that's obvious. I mean, you're obviously motivated. All people are. I'm not here. I never did give anyone any motivation. I'm not about that. I'm the why guy. I want to know, what is your motivation? What is your motive for action? What does drive you? Better yet, I want to know why you're so motivated, you say, to accomplish something, to lose weight, to change your career, to make a difference, to change your body. But each day you eat more donuts. You seem to be more motivated to do that. Or each day you don't do what's necessary. You don't make the calls. You don't follow through. Why is it you say you want something, but you seem to do the opposite? Why? Don't you want to know the answer to that? Or why is it the thing that you say you don't want, you seem to do every day? See, we're going to answer these questions, not in a philosophical way, but by understanding you. So let's start with this on what you're happy about. Why are you happy with this area of your life? And I've been kind of planting seeds so you could think about it, jot it down. But maybe while I'm doing this, I'll ask some people here. I've got, 4 people here in the studio. And I'll call on a few people here, and I'll just ask those, because some of them are actually doing this exercise, I see. So I'd like to ask them maybe to give, you don't have to give your name, so I'll give you guys privacy. But let me ask 1 or 2 people here, what's an area of your life you're really happy about or you're really pleased with? And then why are you happy in that area? And give me that answer. So while you're writing, listen and see if this relates to you in any way. Maybe you have a different point of view, but it'll show you the same formula. Because if I were to say to you up front, I'm going to show you the formula for happiness, what BS. If I tell you, you'll doubt it. But if I can get you to uncover it and see it's true, you'll know it's true in your life as well. So why don't we start with you, Madame? What's the area of your life that first comes to mind that you're most pleased with?
I'd have to say my relationships.
Okay.
My relationship, I should say.
Relationships or relationship?
Relationship.
Okay, good. I bet he's happy to hear that. Right. So, and I'm sure there are many relationships you're happy with, but you're talking about your intimate relationship?
I am. I'm talking about my boyfriend.
Okay. Tell me this. Why are you so pleased with that area of your life? Why are you happy right now in that area of your life right now today?
Because I found a person who loves me no matter what I am. If I'm quirky, if I'm crazy, if I'm passionate, if I'm, just out there. He loves me, he accepts me, he encourages me to be like that, and we just have the most wonderful time together. And I just enjoy being with him so much.
So let me offer everyone now the formula for a moment, and then I'll ask someone else theirs, and you'll see if this works for you. So I say to people that whenever you're happy in an area of your life, here's the formula. If you're happy there in that area of your life right now, it's because your current life conditions in that area of your life, now the conditions of your life in that area, and I have a little formula, I call it LC for life conditions equals BP. What that means is your current life conditions, your conditions of your life in that area, in your case, your relationship, match or equal your blueprint of how it should be in a relationship. Is that true? Is your idea of how a relationship should be, is it should be someone who accepts you no matter what, who loves you no matter what style or approach you have, and that you enjoy being with? I mean, would that be fair to say that that's your idea of how it should be?
Absolutely.
And when life is how it should be based on our blueprint, we're happy. Now, the only challenge is sometimes we have a blueprint that's not very fair. Fair to ourselves, fair to life, fair to other people. But we'll get deeper in that in a moment. Let me do another example. Can I use one of the gentlemen here? Can you share with me, sir, what's the area of your life you're really pleased with right now?
Right now, I'd say it's my work.
Your work. Okay, good. I'm glad you're doing that right now then. So,
works out well.
Good. So tell me, why are you so pleased with that area of your life, your work right now at this stage?
Because I can see there's a lot of opportunities, and I can see myself progressing. So it's not like I'm standing still. And I'm really happy with where I am. I've worked hard to be where I am, and it's really starting to pay off.
Okay, so again, if the formula was really true, and what was making you happy was that your life conditions right now in this area called work matched your core expectation, maybe not your ultimate goal, your ultimate dream, but your core expectation of how it should be. Is that true? Is that why you're happy? Is your idea of work is something that you got to be making progress? You can't be standing still, that there's got to be great opportunities in front of you, that you got to feel this sense of momentum that I'm hearing you describe. Is that true for you?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that formula is the base. Now, by the way, I can give anyone a formula right now for happiness overall. You just mentioned it, unconsciously. Happiness comes from progress. And the reason is life is growth. If we're not grown, we don't feel alive. What I can promise you in the days ahead is massive transformation and growth in you. Not because I'm so good, but because you're going to be focusing on what matters most to you. And you're going to align your life with your blueprint, or you're going to align your blueprint with your life, one of the two, depending upon what makes more sense for you. But what I want you to hear in both these people's examples is the reason they're happy in that area of their life is very simple. Today, right now, currently, their life conditions match how they think it should be. Again, they may want even more, but the base level is met, and that equals happiness. That equals fulfillment. So now let me ask all of you, and obviously the person I'm talking here directly by way of this audio program, let me ask you the second question. And notice I didn't start with this one because not everybody wants to go here. But let's be honest with each other. If we're going to make progress, we got to be able to see that sometimes there's a gap between where we are and where we want to be. So let's make that progress. Let's not just talk inspiration. Let's talk the truth. What's an area of your life today that you are not happy with, that you're not pleased with? Maybe you're really unhappy with. What's an area of your life, if you're totally honest? And I don't care how successful, how brilliant, how smart you are. Listen, I've dealt with 3.5 million people, some of the most successful in the world and some of the most challenged. Everybody, if they're honest, has an area where there's a gap between where they are and where they want to be. Again, if you're doing great in your career, maybe you're not doing so good in the amount of time you spend with your kids, and there's a little unhappiness to that, or not enough time in your intimate relationship. If you're doing great in your intimate relationship, maybe you're not handling your finances really well. Or maybe your finances are going great, but your body's not where it wanted to be. Or all those are great, but man, the spiritual side of life, you're not given the time to connect with God or to have a sense of meaning or contribution in your life. If you're totally honest, what's an area of your life you're not happy with, or you're at least not thoroughly pleased, for those who can't own any area that needs to be massively improved? Think about it. And, truthfully, you may be on a roll right now in your life. I don't know where you are personally. We all go through different seasons, right? Some of us, you might be in the fall where you're reaping all your efforts and you're feeling this great sense of reward. You're on a roll. You might be in winter where it feels like I'm picking up this program as a last resort. That guy with the big teeth, maybe he can do something for me. I don't know, Or maybe you're in the springtime. You're starting a new chapter of your life. Maybe you picked up this program for that. Or maybe you're in the summer where you planted some great seeds and you're like, where's the crop? It's getting hot. I've been working hard. Where's the reward? Whatever season you're in your life, even in the best seasons, there are some challenging times or some challenging areas. Where is an area of your life you're not happy with? Because I want to show you the formula for unhappiness or disappointment or frustration. But let's pick a place you're unhappy with. So again, if you're not driving, if you're not jogging, and even if you are driving, maybe it's worth pulling over and just taking a moment for yourself. Take out a pen, take out your success journal if you have it on you, or a piece of paper or your computer, and just write down right now what's an area of your life you're not happy with, you're not pleased with, you're really unhappy with maybe. But then the second question is, why? Why are you unhappy with this area of your life? Remember, I'm the why guy. In the power of why, we can figure out what's driving us, and we can figure out how to change it. So why are you not happy with this area of your life? Why are you not pleased? Take a moment, jot down what the area is, and jot down why you're not happy with it. You can stop this audio right now while you jot it down, put it on pause, and bring me back on. Or maybe to help you stall, maybe I'll just ask some of the people in the room. I'm hoping that right now, yes, they are writing this thing down, the area they're not pleased with, why they're not pleased with it. Maybe I'll go back to the same two people for contrast. Madame, can I come back to you? What's an area of your life you're not thrilled with, you're not totally pleased with right now?
My finances.
Your finances, okay. And tell me, why aren't you pleased with that area of your life right now?
Because I feel at this stage of my life, I should be further along with the money that I have, the investments I should have. I feel like I'm not farther enough along.
As you, quote, should be.
As I should be.
Yes.
Yes.
And, should's an interesting word. Most people, when they're not making progress, they should all over themselves. They list a bunch of shoulds, a bunch of rules of how this thing should be, and they beat themselves up. So what I'm hearing you say, if I'm hearing you correctly, is the should is coming from your blueprint, your idea of how it should be. And you say, I'm not where I should be. It's compared to what? Compared to 2/3 of the planet that's living on less than $2 a day? Probably not. But compared to your blueprint of where you think you should be, I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying this is the formula for unhappiness in this area right now. So is it true you think you should be much further than you are financially at this stage? Is that an accurate description?
Yes.
So your life conditions don't match your core expectations, don't match your blueprint. So you experience something called unhappiness or dissatisfaction, or pain would be the most simple word we can use. Now that pain can make you crazy, or it can be used to make you hungry to find the answers and change. So as you're listening right now, I'm hoping you're relating this to yourself. Let me stall, give you a little time, and give you one more example. Sir, what's an area, I know you're thrilled with your work. That's the area you're happy with. What's the area you're not as thrilled with, you're not as pleased with in your life right now?
I would say my health.
And why are you not as pleased with your health?
I'm a little overweight. I don't have the body image that I'd want. I know that I'm not anywhere near where I should be with just general overall health type of thing.
Okay. And that's body shape, that's muscle, that's energy. What would you say?
It's all of the above.
Okay, all of the above. Okay. Well, you seem to be hard on yourself, but what's nice is you have a very high standard. Nothing wrong with that. But the point is, again, you're not satisfied, you're not happy, you're not pleased because your current life conditions in the area called your body don't match your shoulds, your core expectation of how it should be. Make sense?
Yes.
So now the question is, what do we do with this? Well, first of all, if you're not happy with some area of your life, good, right? Good. This is how we're going to make the shift in your life. This is what this whole program's about. Being honest with yourself that there's some place in your life, there's a gap between where you are and where you really want to be. And so we're going to help you close that gap. And the first step is to get honest with yourself, to tell yourself the truth, not make it worse than it is, but say, here's how it really is. That's how we start to improve. Then what we're going to do is get clear about what you really want, get a vision. And then we're going to work on the strategies to close that gap and make what you're visioning real. That's the process we're going to go through. Now, by the way, if you're not happy with an area of your life, we could call that unhappiness, we could call that dissatisfaction, or at a simple level, we call it some level of pain. Whenever we feel dissatisfied, unhappy, or a sense of pain, we really have three choices. And I don't just mean the choice of what to focus on, that's true, and what things mean and do, but let me kind of reframe it for you in a different way. The first choice people have when things aren't the way they want is to blame someone. Why are my finances not where I want them to be? Why is my body not where I want it to be? Why is my relationship not where I want it to be? And the most natural, and I say natural, I should say habitual, what the most people do when they're in this place of stress and they're overwhelmed is they look for something to blame. And there are three things you can blame. A, an event. The best thing about blaming an event, this thing that happened, I had this car accident years ago and I lost my momentum and I haven't worked on my body since. Or, man, I did have some money saved, But then, I had to take care of my mom, or, I put it in the stock market, and remember when it went up and it went down, or I bought some real estate and that was the right answer, and oh my gosh, look what happened. And you got a story. And the story may be absolutely accurate. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying blame will never empower you because it gives you no power. It reinforces this idea that the outside world controls you. And the outside world has massive influence. But again, there's two worlds we can master, the inner world and the outer world. Though if you're going to master the outside world, we got to master the inside first. So blaming an event is convenient because an event's not going to interrupt you and say, excuse me, nope, I'm not the source. It's not going to happen. So you get to preserve your sense of identity. What's another thing you could blame besides some event? Ideally one from the past where no one is here to represent it. You can blame someone else. Well, how could I possibly have a great relationship being with him? Being with her, he or she's impossible. Look at them, they're so selfish. All they do is think about themselves. I hear this all the time in people in their relationships. And you know what? Their partner may be selfish, may be totally true and accurate as a story. But as long as you give that the reason why your life is not where you want it to be, very little is going to change except maybe you leaving that relationship. And then pretty soon you'll end up with the same problems with somebody else, most likely. Not always. Some people are made to be together, some not. I'm not denying that. I've certainly experienced that in my own life. But you got to start with not blaming someone else if you're going to get where you want to go. We all do it. I've done it plenty of times. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm suggesting to you is if you're going to empower yourself, blame is still not the answer because it'll disempower you. And what's the third source you can blame? By the way, blaming someone who's not here is best of all because they won't interrupt you and say, no, it's your fault. So it's very convenient and give you a nice comfort in the moment that there's nothing wrong with me. It's just this other person, whether it be your boss or, your partner or whoever it may be, your children. But the third choice you got is to blame yourself. And most people think of this as being responsible. And I'm here to tell you, having worked with 3.5 million people, blaming yourself will not make it better. And I don't mean don't be responsible. When you're blaming yourself, you're not being responsible. You're beating yourself up. When you're responsible, you're saying, oh my gosh, here's a pattern that I've got to change. This isn't me. This is a pattern that I've been running. I got to shift this pattern to focus or meaning or action. I got to shift what goes on in this area and I can make a change in this life. But as long as you're beating yourself up, you're blaming yourself, woe is me, or I'm no good, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not strong enough, you're not going to see a change. Does that make sense? Blame is something we all do at times, but the quicker you can get out of it, the faster you'll be empowered. So I look at blame as one of three choices, but it's a choice that really doesn't give you anything. What's the second choice? A real choice. Well, if you don't like how your business is, if you don't like your finances, if you don't like your body, if you don't like your relationship, change it. That's what you got to do. Change it. Change your life conditions. You'll never do that as long as you're blaming someone else. What do you got to do? Put on your shoes and start walking. Take some action. Find a role model of someone who's already done it. Get focused not just on I need to lose weight or I need to get stronger, healthier, or I need to make more money. Get focused on what you want and be specific. Hey, I want this kind of energy. I want to be able to run like the wind. I want the energy when I come home and say, honey, I'm home. She feels it or he feels it. It creates a state change in my partnership, Or, I want, this kind of physical strength. I want to be shaped like this. And you be real specific. I want to lose 23 pounds. Not, I want to lose some weight. Because you may be focused, but you're not being clear. Now, there is a third choice. Sometimes you can't change your life conditions. What, Tony Robbins, you're telling me I can't change my life? I'm saying some things are outside your control. Let's be honest, right? You can't control someone else's health. You can influence it. You can't control the weather. You can't control what's happening in the economy. You can control what you do with it. You can influence, but you can't control it. Sometimes you can't control what's happening with your own body. I mean, every one of us is going to age, and certain things eventually change, right? It's just how it works. So if you put yourself in a position where life has to be a certain way based on your blueprint for you to be happy, and life not only isn't that way, but can't be that way, then you're going to be unhappy and miserable forever. See, if in order for you to be happy, your parents have to be alive, and in my case, that was a belief I once had, and I was into challenging traditional therapists as opposed to training them. I was a young kid, and I was just cared about people. I want to show what was possible, and I thought challenging was the way to prove myself, and it was a good way of doing things, but it wasn't very elegant. Now, I've hopefully changed some of my style since that time. My point is, though, I would challenge therapists and say, give me your worst patient. I do this on a radio show. Give me somebody you've never been able to cure. I'll handle them in an hour. A great way to create a claim. And they'd fight with me, argue with me, and I'd say, great, bring your patient. I'm doing this free guest event, and I'll demonstrate it. And so for years, I built my reputation initially by turning people around in one session. Or I'd say, listen, I'll give you a coaching session, one session, and I promise a result, you pay nothing. And it'd be something they'd worked on for years and years and years. But I got into the changes of their blueprint and their body, their states and their blueprint, and the change happens. I got to change what controls them moment to moment and the blueprint. So for example, a woman I was told about, she had a lot of great friends. And this woman wants to remain private, but I'll just say this very famous woman, if I mention her name, you know who she was. And I'll give you this frame about her life. Incredibly successful at multiple levels of success. Probably the most important area, relationships, enormous, incredible number of friends who truly love her. In fact, that's how I found out about her. People that were concerned for her, that truly loved her. You could see the authentic caring for her. Secondly, incredibly successful in her career. Very famous as a result. Third, very successful financially, wealthy by just about anybody's terms. Fourthly, what else I'd say? A very physically strong person. Someone's taking care of her body, and a very attractive woman. So all these areas of life are abundant. She would be considered to be, a successful, wealthy, abundant human being at just about anybody's standards, except one, happiness. She's completely, totally, clinically depressed and has been through therapy for years, hides it publicly, but personally is devastated, has been at the edge, whether she wanted to live or die many times. And so now what's she done? She's been medicated for years, and now the problem is she's maxed her medications. And at this point I said, bring her, I'll handle it in one session. That sounds very flippant, but I did it to just jolt the person's attention. And this person knew the kinds of things I did and said, well, I'd love to believe that. I said, bring her, and I promise you in a session or two, we'll get her there. The problem, she's depressed for a reason. It's a habit in her body, physiologically, biochemically. But I said, more importantly, she has a blueprint. If she's depressed all the time, not just moment to moment, she's got a blueprint. And they said, yeah, but she's on Prozac, and if I remember right, it was a Flexor and Zoloft, all three maxed out. I said, you're changing your biochemistry, but if you change the controlling force of your blueprint, it's not going to change. You're still going to get depressed. So long story short, I eventually get to sit with this woman, visit with her. She spends the first 20 or 30 minutes trying to explain to me that she's apologetic, that she's depressed when she knows she should be happy. She should be happy. The problem is she's not. So I dig and dig and dig, and guess what I discovered? Your blueprint is kind of your map for how life is supposed to be. So I finally find out, what is life about? How is it supposed to be? And she finally confesses that her whole life, even though she knows it's not right, she's always believed that she should be married with a great man, and they should have 3 children, that even if he passes, these children will love her forever and she will love them. Oh, nothing wrong with that belief system except this. You say, well, Tony, just tell her to change her life conditions. Go build a relationship. Go have some children. Sounds really good, except this woman at that stage was in her very late 50s. So barring a medical miracle, we're not going to see a life condition change here. In other words, she can't physically have children. So I immediately said, well, what about adopting? What about... No, that's not her blueprint. It has to be her own blood children. Adopted kids sometimes look for their parents. Sometimes they leave you. And underneath it, I began to look for, if you're going to change your blueprint, there's a need you're trying to meet. And we'll go into this in more depth later. I just want to kind of trigger you to understand how powerful the blueprint is, and that sometimes you got to change it, not just change your life, in order to be successful, fulfilled, happy, have meaning. But what you got to do is find out, why is that blueprint that way? What's the need she's after? And again, we'll go into depth on this later in another day. But here's what you get. What she wanted was 2 human needs: love and certainty. The certainty that love would never go away. And the problem is, her blueprint was a man will leave you. She'd been married twice and divorced. So she knew that would happen. But your children will always love you and never leave you. Clearly, she never had a 16-year-old. I've got 4 kids, and if you've got children, there may be a stage with some of those children where they don't love you unconditionally every moment and never leave you. They do the opposite. Where's the keys, baby? So the point of the matter is, all I did, and again, I won't take the time to explain it all here. We'll go into depth in our final session. I'm going to take someone through a change in their blueprint. You'll hear it, see it, experience it, and it's very powerful. And in fact, if you watch the film Back from the Edge, you'll see 2 people who absolutely, seemingly, cannot stay together. Their relationship is over. That's why I call it Back from the Edge. And all I do is discover both of their blueprints about how they're supposed to be, how their partner's supposed to be, and we shift the blueprint, and they're together today. My point is, just for now, understand, I got her to realize that love is what she really wants from her blueprint, and it's all around her. I changed her filter, and she started finding that love with her friends. She started finding it with other family members. How do you think men used to respond to her when every moment she's thinking, I have to marry a man, and I have to have 3 children, and they have to stay with me forever, but at the same time, I have this inner conflict that says, men leave you. Can you imagine the level of stress in her state? But when she's feeling every day alive, and alive filled with love and feeling fulfilled, she was glowing. And all of a sudden, you can guess what happened. Men started getting attracted to her. And I don't remember exactly how many years. I think it was 2 or 3 years later, I checked back up on her, and sure enough, she had not married this man, but she had this beautiful man in her life, had not adopted any children, did not have any kids, but totally fulfilled. And by the way, got rid of the drugs within 2 days, because all of a sudden, the source of the challenge had shifted. So remember, there's 3 choices. Blame. Blame an event in your life. Blame an event outside your control. Blame a person. Blame yourself. It never works. 2 real choices. Change your life conditions. We're going to show you how to do that step by step here, or change your blueprint. Now, let me give an example that would illustrate not only the power to get people to tap their resources at a different level, but really the power of state and shifting blueprint. And the example I want to give you is related from sports, but you could relate this to your own life. You could relate this to if you're in a position of leadership. Listen, if you're a business person, you've got to get people to maximize their ability, don't you? You got to get them when they're in a down state and turn them around, and not just for the moment. You got to get them to sustain their success, change that focus, change what this challenge means, change what they're doing so they get the victory in life. Got to do the same things for your kids, don't you? What is a good parent? It's a good leader. You got to help your kids find a different focus when it's not working out, when they feel like, it's all coming apart or they're not enough. You got to be able to do the same thing, get them to come up with a better meaning, take action. Sometimes you got to do this to yourself. And if you're going to lead, you got to start by leading yourself, not other people. So let me give you a good example. You may have seen my silly infomercials over the years, and you may have noticed that Coach Pat Riley, one of the greatest coaches in NBA history, is in those shows and often gives testimony to the impact of my work. And Pat's a dear friend of mine. I met him in the early 1990s, but he actually started reading my books and listening to my tapes back in the 80s. In fact, he's given me enormous credit for the impact he had back in the days when he was with 4 championship teams, the Los Angeles Lakers. I could share so many stories about Pat because he's such an extraordinary human being. But let me just give you an example that you may recall that's got some recency to it. You may recall that Pat had joined the Miami Heat. When he took the team over, it was a team that had never won a national championship, and they were really broken. And he loved the idea of this challenge. Well, by 2006, Pat was 61 years old, and he had not won a national championship in 17 years. What a gift. At that stage of your life, to be back in the competition, to be the best in the world, the best of anyone who exists in the NBA. But here he finds himself having an opportunity to fight in one of those championships, and by the second game of the series, he'd already lost 2 games. His men were feeling defeated. Listen, there's only been 2 teams prior to Pat Riley that have ever come back having lost the first 2 games and won the NBA championship. 2 in history. So everyone, of course, in the press is talking about this. In the interviews, they're talking about this after the game. And you could just take one look at the states of these men, these players, and you'd say, oh my God, they just lost 2 in Dallas. They're going back to Miami. There's no way they're going to turn this around. So what did Pat do? He recognized the truth. What he had to do is make some changes in his own state. He had to be able to find a sense of absolute certainty within himself before he could transfer it to the people he wanted to touch. And by the way, it's the same thing that all of us have to do. If you're going to lead, you can't give something you haven't done to yourself. You can't take somebody to a place that you're not yet in. How he did that, we'll talk about on tomorrow's audio. But once he had that state of certainty, and he was tapping into a blueprint that says there's always a way. There's always a way to victory. Even though you're down by 0-2, even though only 2 teams in history have done it, there is a way. He then began to work on a plan. And here was his plan. The day after that second loss, when the team spirit was about as low as it could possibly be, he didn't go in to motivate these men. He wanted to inspire them. And by the way, you'll hear me say this a lot of times. I don't believe in motivation. Motivation's like a warm bath, but we all need inspiration. And what's the difference? Someone trying to get you going versus someone triggering something that already exists inside you. Inside all of us, there's the ability to overcome. He had to find a way to raise their spirits so in that state of mind, they could find their real abilities, their real resources. So he tells them the day after the game when their spirits are as low as they can imagine, he says, look, guys, we're going to be playing for the national championship 12 days from today on June 20th in Dallas in Game 6. Now, guys looked at him like, come on. We just lost 2 in a row. Only 2 teams ever come back from in history. Some talked about it later. Some were thinking in their minds at the time, as Pat shared the story with me later. He said, you could just look in their eyes and see total disbelief. He said, now I know what you're thinking. Many of you are looking at me like, oh, this is some kind of pump up. There's no way in hell. Only 2 teams in history have ever come back from losing the first 2 games to win, and we aren't playing well. We seem to be outmatched by these guys. There's no way we're going to go and win 3 games in a row here in Miami and then go back to Dallas and beat them. We haven't won a game in Dallas for 4 years. At that stage, the Heat had not won 1 game in Dallas, hear me, in 4 years, much less in the championship after they'd been behind. And he just looked them in the eye and he said, feel me and feel yourselves. He said, there is no doubt, there is 0 doubt in my mind that all the hardships, all the work, all that we put in this entire season is going to come to fruition. And that night, when we finally have the chance to taste victory, all the deprivation, all that we've endured is going to take us to the point where we will take that victory. Well, if you remember history, you know what occurred. They came back and they won in Miami the next game and the next 3 games in a row. Now they're flying back to Dallas to play the Mavericks on their home court where they have an incredible record and where Miami has the worst record against them for 4 years. But before he left, he called another team meeting the morning before they're supposed to fly to Dallas. And he said, remember what I said to you after you lost the second game? We've won 3 in a row. No one in the world thought we were going to do this. We're 1 victory away. And many of you are thinking we got 2 games to do it in. And he said, and you're wrong. We're going to do it in 1 game. It's real simple, gentlemen. We're going to walk into this place with a level of certainty where we own that victory right now before we even get on the plane, and we're going to carry it through the game no matter what hardships we face, and we are going to walk out victorious and champions. And he said the way we're going to do it is real simple. Pack only 1 set of clothes for Game 6 because there isn't going to be a Game 7. He said, I'm not booking any hotels. We're booking 1 hotel night, 1 evening. And as you can guess, there are not going to be any other hotels in Dallas with that game going on. Everybody's flying in to see it. We're booking 1 night. We're bringing 1 suit to wear because I want to tell you something. We're going to come back that night to Miami for our victory celebration. There's no doubt in my mind, just like there was no doubt in my mind when I talked to you after the second game. We're going to come back having won that game. So sure enough, to a man, they packed only 1 outfit. They booked only 1 evening, and they flew into the Lions' Den into Dallas to go play the 6th game. And if you read the press, if you talk to your friends, if you're an NBA fan, I'm sure you can remember very few people thought that they could possibly win a 4th game in a row and take the championship in Game 6 in Dallas's hometown. But Pat knew there was one more thing to be done. He needed to make sure the players were in state from an emotional gut level, inspired right before the game. I had the chance to fly to Dallas, and I was so excited to see what they could do. Pat let me know they were going to absolutely win before the game, and I was going to have a chance to witness it. But here's what he said to the team. He walked in, and it was silent. Everyone looked in each other's eyes, paused, waiting to hear what Pat would say before the most important game of their life. He looked around and said, gentlemen, does April 4th, 1968 mean anything to you? And of the 15 players, 14 were African-American at the time. So some of the older players looked at him kind of knowingly and nodded their heads, but some of the younger players looked at him with kind of a blank expression on their face. And Pat said, that was the day that Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. The day before that assassination, he was speaking to a striking Memphis sanitation workers. Now, I'm not trying to trivialize the work of one of the greatest American leaders we've ever had by trying to compare him with what we're trying to accomplish here in some sporting contest. He said, but I want you to understand there are some parallels. He said, for what Dr. King said is this. And let me just read you what he read, the famous words of Dr. King. I know I won't do them justice with my voice, but think about sitting in that room right before the game where everything's on the line, and you're hearing these words. Oh, like anybody, I'd like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned with that now. I just want to do God's will. And he's allowed me to go to the mountain, and I have looked over, and I have seen the promised land. We have suffered greatly. We've been through so many deprivations, but I have seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will go to the promised land. And I am happy tonight. I am not worried about anything. I am not fearing any man. My eyes have seen the glory, and it is ours. And with that, Pat turned, walked out of the locker room, and led his men onto the floor into battle. And the game began. And a group of men walked on that court that were very different than just 9 days before when they'd lost that second game. A group of men that had found the resources inside of themselves to triumph. They didn't play perfectly. There were all kinds of ups and downs in the end. But in the final seconds when that buzzer went and these men were facing the greatest challenge of their life, they won by 3 points. And they walked off champions for the first time in their lives. And for Pat Riley, a true leader, an amazing coach, for the 5th time as a leader. And I tell you this story because it inspires me. I mean, here's a man I'm trying to coach. He teaches me all the time. Isn't that true of all of our lives? All he did was find a way at different stages to get these men to enter a state of their true ability, to give up the blueprint of failure and to step into the blueprint that there is always a way. How useful is that blueprint for all of us? How useful could it be in your life? No matter how successful we are going to face challenges in our life, and it's going to be our capacity to find the state within us, to find those beliefs within us that'll inspire us. And in the coming days, we're going to come at it from many different ways, from humor, from real strategies that are proven, and we're going to just do a little bit each day until you get the momentum that takes you, if you're already successful, through the championship and beyond, the consistency of being your best all the time. Or if you're facing a challenging time where you feel like you're 0-2, it's going to be the victory that brings you those 4 victories in a row and that redefines your own identity of who you are and how you show up. That's the promise of the ultimate edge. What is the ultimate edge in life? Emotional fitness, psychological strength, the mental edge, the focus, the strategies and tools, and the alignment within yourself. That's what we're going to focus on each day. Not just inspiration, but strategy as we work together to make sure we maximize who you are, what you're capable of, and what you get to enjoy out of this life. And that's where I want to kind of end here in terms of our final exercise. What I want you to think about as you leave, and what we're going to do each day so you know, is you'll listen to a session like this. Hopefully it'll stimulate you. It'll get you asking questions. It'll give you some tools, some strategies. But the proof is in the pudding. It's where the rubber meets the road, to use 2 overused metaphors. But it's true. The rubber meets the road with action. So at the end of each session, I'm going to ask you to do something. It might take you 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes so you get momentum. On some days, it'll be a strategy I want you to implement. Maybe something on your finances. It might be around your body. On other days, it's going to be something that makes you shift psychologically in your state or in your blueprint. Today, since this is the introduction, I know this has been a tall drink of water, but I hope it's been stimulating for you, and we're going to go into the mechanics tomorrow. But what I really want to do today is first have you just look at, for 2, 3, 4 minutes, stop, stretch your body out, and I want you to write a paragraph or 2 to answer this question. What would your life be like if it was exactly the way you want it to be today? In other words, I want you to start with the ultimate end in mind. We all know we need to think about what we want, not what we don't want. We have to focus our minds. But I want to make it rich. It doesn't have to be perfect. The words don't have to be magical or something. I want you to describe for yourself. Like, if life was the way I ultimately want it to be, if my life was extraordinary, life on my terms, what would that look like? What would I change? What would I enhance? What would I spend more time with? What would I appreciate more? What would I do? And I want you to just take a little time to jot that down and kind of get a paragraph or 2 that you can read that you go, yeah, that's the essence. Because that is what we're going for. Yes, we'll make the individual changes around, finances or body or money or whatever it is, relationships, etc. But what we want to get clear is what's the ultimate you're after. And we're going to make sure we keep moving you towards that. And if you're wondering, how are we going to do that in a week or 2? We're going to do it by a little action each day. Input, information, education, some tools, some inspiration, but most importantly, something you're going to do. And each day we'll build on the day before, and pretty soon you'll get this momentum. We all know, the hardest part of working out is getting to the gym, right? And once you get started, you get in the flow. The same thing is true here. So my only request to you is show up. I'll be here with plenty of energy, ready to rock and roll with you. I can promise you that. I'm here to serve you. But none of this coaching is going to do any good if you're not here with me. So if you miss a day, get right back on it. Don't beat yourself up. Just rejoin me and let's rock and roll together. And tomorrow, by the way, tomorrow's first session is not about philosophy and inspiration. Tomorrow is that first introductory day of the Hour of Power. Think of it as our first real session, and it's on mechanics. It's on strategy. Tomorrow, I'm going to share with you exactly what I did to change my life years ago, and I still use it to this day, and I've taught millions of people to do it. I'm going to show you exactly what Pat Riley did to come up with that strategy that changed his life and changed the entire team. I'll tell you precisely what he did. He's my dear friend. He can verify it for you. It's these simple, physical, emotional, and focused steps. So that's what tomorrow's session's about. So hey, I hope this has inspired you. I hope this maybe at times has triggered you to think. I know my style and approach in this session has been really fast and strong and passionate. I know I'm a special bus, but you probably figured out there's no script here, baby. This is just me showing up saying, okay, if you were my dearest friend and I'm just taking everything I've learned to help you move to the next level, even if you're better than I am, this is what I know. Here's what we do in our first session. And that's what I really wanted to create here for you. So thank you. It is a privilege and a blessing to be able to start this relationship with you and to start working on coaching and taking things to the next level. Now, by the way, we've covered so much territory, and honestly, my ideal would not be just to be having an audio conversation with you. I create these programs so we can reach millions of people because it's so darn easy and convenient. I mean, you don't have to go anyplace or do anything. It's, at your fingertips. You could do it 24/7, 365, anytime you want, using that net time, no extra time. But if you ask me, Tony, okay, I really want to take things to the next level. I want to transform things at a higher level right now, my body or my emotions, my finances, relationships, whatever. And you said, what's the best way to do it? The answer is total immersion. Just remember, I've created these events where literally in a couple days, in a weekend, you're able to go from where you are to where you want to be because we cover everything and we do it while you're in state. And you have the power of being in that group dynamic and me being able to individually work with you and other people right there in front of you. So immersion events are my favorite thing. They'll get you the fastest result. The follow-up to that ideally is one-on-one coaching. Again, convenient. You can do it anytime you want from wherever you are in the world because it's all done by phone and it's on your schedule. And it's brief and it's easy, and we're talking 20, 30, 45 minutes, an hour max, depending upon what you want to need, once, twice, 3 times a month, again, depending upon your needs. And then finally, the reinforcement of repetition. Coming back to this audio program and focusing on an area that matters to you, going through it again, locking it in your body, making sure that that repetition gets it in your body and you follow through. Total immersion, one-on-one coaching, and an audio program for that constant reinforcement. So if you're interested, call us at 1-800-898-8669. That's 1-800-898-8669, which, by the way, 8669 is T-O-N-Y. Tony, corny as it sounds, but it's easy to remember. 1-800-898-8669, 898-TONY. Or just go to TonyRobbins.com. That'll get you the ultimate result that you're really after. I hope you'll take advantage of it, and I'll have the chance to meet you at some live event soon. Maybe you'll be able to share with me some of the results you've already gotten in your life as we go to the next level together. Thanks again for your time. This has been a privilege to serve you. I'll look forward to our next session together. God bless and live with passion.